opened the front door to my new house, and the ocean breeze hit me like a blessing I'd been waiting my entire life to receive. My hands were still shaking from signing the final papers that morning, $3 million. The number felt surreal even now, standing in the marble foyer of what was officially mine. The realtor had left 20 minutes ago, her perfume still lingering in the air, mixing with the salt from the Atlantic Ocean just beyond my floor-to-ceiling windows. I walked through each room slowly, my bare feet cold against the Italian tile, letting it all sink in. The gourmet kitchen with the waterfall island. The master suite with the balcony overlooking the private beach. The home office where I'd continue building my consulting firm. The guest rooms I'd probably never fill because I'd learned a long time ago not to expect visitors who actually cared. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a gift. This was mine because I'd earned it, every single square foot of it. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Dad, of course. Madison, your grandmother wants to know if you're coming to Lily's housewarming party next weekend. I closed my eyes and counted to 5. I already told you I have a client presentation in Miami that weekend. You always have something, he said, and I could hear the familiar disappointment in his voice. Your sister just moved into her first place. It would mean a lot if you showed up for once. For once. As if I'd been the absent one all these years. Dad, I sent her a gift. A very generous gift, actually. A check isn't the same as being there, Madison. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. Instead, I said what I always said. I'll try to make it work. After we hung up, I stood in my living room, looking out at the endless blue horizon, and felt that old familiar ache. The one that had lived in my chest since I was 7 years old and realized that no matter what I did, I would never be enough. Lily was the miracle baby, born when my parents had given up hope of having another child. I was 12 when she arrived, already self-sufficient, already learning to be invisible. Dad was 46 and treated her arrival like a second chance at fatherhood. This time he promised, he'd do it right. I guess that meant he'd done it wrong with me. Madison's tough. He'd tell relatives who asked why he babied Lily so much. She can handle herself. But Lily, she needs us. What he meant was, Lily was lovable. I was manageable. By the time I was 16, I had 2 jobs. By 18, I'd earned a full scholarship to college. By 25, I'd launched my own business. By 32, I just bought a house that most people only see in magazines. And Lily? Lily had been given everything and earned nothing. Dad bought her a car for her 16th birthday. She totaled it within 3 months. He bought her another one. He paid for her college, even though she dropped out sophomore year to find herself. When she turned 23 last year, he bought her a 1-bedroom apartment in our hometown. Nothing fancy, maybe 600 square feet, but it was hers, free and clear. I'd received a card for my college graduation, not even a gift card. Just a card that said congratulations with his signature at the bottom. The Saturday of Lily's housewarming party, I actually managed to rearrange my schedule. Not because I wanted to go, but because I was tired of being the villain in a story where I'd only ever been a survivor. I drove the 4 hours back to my hometown in my Tesla, practicing neutral expressions in the rearview mirror. I'd learned over the years that showing hurt only gave them ammunition. Madison's so sensitive, they'd say. She takes everything so personally. Lily's apartment was in a renovated building downtown, nothing special but decent. When I arrived, the parking lot was already full. I recognized my uncle's trucks, my grandmother's sedan, cousins I hadn't seen in years. All here for Lily. Always for Lily. Inside, the apartment was packed with people, and Lily was in her element, showing off her kitchen, her bathroom with the clawfoot tub, her bedroom with the exposed brick wall. Dad stood next to her like a proud peacock, his arm around her shoulders. He barely glanced at me when I walked in. "Oh, Madison made it," Lily said with that bright smile that made everyone love her. She hugged me, and I could smell the wine on her breath even though it was only 2 in the afternoon. "I'm so glad you're here." She meant it too. That was the thing about Lily. She wasn't cruel, she was just oblivious. She'd been handed everything for so long that she didn't even realize what privilege looked like. "The place looks great," I said, because it was easier than saying what I really thought. Grandma cornered me by the cheese plate. "You look thin, Madison." Are you eating? I'm fine, Grandma. You work too much. You need to find a man, settle down. Look at your sister. She's got boys calling her all the time. I smiled and excused myself to the bathroom, where I stood with my hands braced against the sink, breathing deeply and reminding myself that I'd survived worse than this. When I came out, Dad was in the hallway waiting. We need to talk, he said. My stomach dropped. Nothing good had ever followed those words. He led me to Lily's tiny bedroom and closed the door. Your Uncle Rick mentioned you bought a house in Florida. I should have known. My uncle worked for a title company. Of course he'd seen the transaction. I did. When were you going to tell your family? I was going to mention it, Dad. It just happened this week. His face was doing that thing it always did when he was working up to something. That careful, calculated expression that meant he wanted something from me. What kind of house? I hesitated. A nice one. On the beach. How much? Does it matter? Madison, how much? 3 million. The silence that followed was deafening. I watched his face cycle through shock, confusion, and then something that looked almost like anger. $3 million, he repeated slowly. You have $3 million. I have a successful business, Dad. I've been working 80-hour weeks for 10 years. Yes, I have money. He sat down on Lily's bed, his hands clasped between his knees. That's more than I'll make in my lifetime. I've worked very hard. I'm sure you have. He looked up at me then, and there was something in his eyes I couldn't quite read. You know, Lily's apartment is nice, but it's small. She's already talking about how she wishes she had more space. A second bedroom, at least. My blood turned cold. Dad, I'm just saying you have this huge house in Florida. $3 million worth of house. And your sister is cramped in 600 square feet. Are you seriously? I'm not saying permanently, he interrupted. But maybe you could swap for a while. Let her enjoy the beach house, spread out a little. You could stay in her apartment. You're always working anyway. You don't need all that space. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. You want me to give my house to Lily. Not give. Swap. Temporarily. The house I bought, with my own money. That I earned. Madison, don't be dramatic. I'm just suggesting, no. The word came out harder than I'd intended. Absolutely not. His face hardened. After everything I've done for you, I almost laughed. Everything you've done for me? Like what, exactly? Paying for my childhood? That's called being a parent, Dad. That's the minimum requirement. I raised you, gave you a home, food, education. You gave Lily a car. 2 cars. You paid for her college even though she quit. You bought her an apartment. You gave me a birthday card with $10 in it when I turned 18. And you told me I was old enough to handle myself now. You were always so independent. You didn't need. I needed a father. The words ripped out of me before I could stop them. I needed a father who was proud of me, who showed up to my college graduation, who asked about my business, who gave a damn about me beyond what I could provide for my younger sister. The bedroom door opened. Lily stood there, her face pale. What's going on? Dad stood up quickly. Nothing, sweetheart. Madison and I were just talking. About her giving me her house? Lily's voice was small. I heard through the door. Silence. I don't want her house, Daddy, Lily said quietly. I never asked for that. I know you didn't, baby. I was just thinking out loud. I pushed past both of them and walked toward the front door. My grandmother tried to stop me, but I kept walking. Down the stairs, through the parking lot, into my car. I drove back to Florida with tears streaming down my face, angry at myself for crying, angry at him for asking, angry at the whole goddamn world for making me feel like I was the selfish one. The next 3 weeks were silent ones. No calls from Dad, no texts from Lily. Just blessed, peaceful silence. Then Dad called. I'm coming to Florida next weekend, he announced. I want to see this house of yours. Why? Because I'm your father and I'd like to see where you live. Is that a crime? I should have said no. I should have told him I was busy. Instead, I heard myself say, fine. Saturday. I'll text you the address. He arrived in his old pickup truck. The one with the faded paint and the rust spots he refused to fix. I watched from my balcony as he pulled into my circular driveway, his head tilting back to take in the full 3 stories of my home. When I opened the door, his mouth was literally hanging open. Madison, this is double quotes. My house, I finished. Come in. I gave him the full tour, watching his face as we walked through each room. The chef's kitchen where I barely cooked because I was always working, the home theater I'd installed but never used, the infinity pool that overlooked the ocean, the master suite with the bathroom bigger than Lily's entire apartment. He was quiet the whole time, just nodding and making small sounds of amazement. When we finished, we sat on the back patio drinking iced tea and watching the waves. This is incredible, Madison, he finally said. I had no idea you'd done so well. You never asked. He flinched but didn't argue. You know, seeing this place, it really does make me think that Lily... Don't, I interrupted. Don't even start. I'm just saying, you have so much. And she has so little? Would it really be so terrible to share? I set down my glass very carefully. You want me to share? After 34 years of watching you give everything to Lily while I got nothing. After building this entirely on my own. After succeeding despite you. Not because of you. You want me to share. You sound bitter. I am bitter. I stood up, my hands shaking. I am so goddamn bitter that I can taste it every single day. Do you know what it's like to be the child who wasn't enough? To watch your father's eyes light up for your sister in a way they never did for you? To earn everything and receive nothing while she received everything and earned nothing? Madison, I bought this house because I wanted something that was mine. Something no one gave me. Something no one could take away. And you show up here and immediately try to give it to her. Dad stood up too, his face red. I never said take it away. I said share. There's a difference. Not to me there isn't. We stared at each other across the patio table, years of resentment hanging in the air between us. I think you should leave, I said quietly. Madison, please leave. He left. I watched his truck disappear down my street and I felt hollow. 2 days later, my grandmother called. Your father is very upset. He says you were cruel to him. Did he tell you what he asked me to do? He said he just wanted you to think about helping your sister. That's not an unreasonable request from a father. Grandma, do you know what he gave me when I graduated college? Silence. A card. Just a card. And when I bought this house, his first thought was to give it to Lily. Not congratulations. Madison, not, I'm proud of you. Just give it to your sister. Madison, honey, you have to understand. Lily is different. She needs more support. And I didn't? I never needed support. You were always so strong, so capable. You didn't seem to need... I hung up. That night, I made a decision. A petty, ridiculous, possibly brilliant decision. The next time Dad called asking to visit again, to talk things over, I said yes. But this time, I had a plan. I hired an interior designer to help me stage the house. We covered the expensive furniture with sheets. We removed the art from the walls. We made it look occupied, but not by me. I also hired 2 actors, professional ones. When Dad arrived the following Saturday, I met him at the door wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, my hair pulled back in a bun. Oh, hello, I said, with a polite smile. You must be Mr. Morrison. Ms. Madison said you'd be stopping by. His face scrunched in confusion. Madison? What are you talking about? It's me, Dad. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not Madison. I'm Claire, the house manager. Miss Morrison hired me to maintain the property while she's traveling for business. House manager? What the hell are you, Madison? Stop playing games. I assure you, sir, I'm not playing games. I stepped aside. Miss Morrison left instructions that if you came by, I should give you a tour. She's currently in Singapore closing a deal. She won't be back for 3 weeks. I watched the gears turning in his head, saw the exact moment he decided to play along, probably thinking I was having some kind of breakdown. Fine, he said slowly. Show me around. I gave him the tour, but this time I played the role perfectly. I referred to Miss Morrison in the third person. I explained her travel schedule, her business dealings, her incredibly demanding career. One of the actors I'd hired, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, was sitting by the pool reading the Wall Street Journal. I introduced him as Mr. Chen, one of Miss Morrison's business partners who's staying in the guest house. The other actor, a young woman, was in the kitchen making lunch. This is Sophie, Miss Morrison's personal assistant. She coordinates everything. Dad shook their hands, looking more confused by the minute. When we reached the master suite, I opened the door to reveal the room completely transformed. We'd removed all my personal items and replaced them with generic hotel-like decor. Miss Morrison rarely sleeps here, I explained. She's usually traveling. Last month she was in Dubai, before that Tokyo, before that London. She works approximately 90 hours a week. That's insane, Dad muttered. She's very driven, I said. Some might say she's compensating for something. A childhood where she felt unseen, perhaps. Where she learned that love had to be earned through achievement rather than given freely. Dad's head snapped toward me. What did you just say? I'm just speculating, sir. I don't actually know Miss Morrison very well. She's rarely here. We returned to the living room where I offered him coffee. He sat down heavily, still processing. So, my daughter, lives like this, alone in this huge house with just staff? Well, she's not here most of the time, as I mentioned. And I believe she prefers it this way. Some people find solitude easier than relationships. That's sad. Is it? I tilted my head. Or is it simply the natural consequence of learning early that relying on others leads to disappointment? Who are you, really? His eyes narrowed. You sound like her. You talk like her. I'm Claire, sir. I've told you several times. Stop it. He stood up abruptly. Madison, I know it's you. Stop with this ridiculous charade. I maintained my calm expression. Sir, I think perhaps you should leave. You seem upset. Of course I'm upset. My daughter is pretending to be her own maid to prove some kind of point. Or, I said quietly, dropping the accent slightly, maybe your daughter wanted you to see what you've turned her into. Someone so isolated in her success that she might as well be a stranger in her own home. His face paled. You came here to convince me to give this house to Lily, I continued, fully myself now. But you didn't see it as my home. You saw it as an asset. A thing. Something that could be redistributed to make things fair. That's not. You asked me to swap houses with my sister. The house I bought with money I earned through a decade of sacrifice and work. And when I said no, you made me feel like I was being selfish. Madison, do you know what message that sent me, Dad? It told me that no matter what I accomplish, it will never be mine. Because anything I have is something that could be better used for Lily. He sank back into the chair, his hands covering his face. I'm not giving her my house, I said. Not for a weekend, not for a year, not ever. This is mine. I earned it. And I'm keeping it. The silence stretched between us. Finally, he spoke, his voice muffled by his hands. I failed you, didn't I? I wasn't expecting that. What? I failed you as a father. He looked up and I was shocked to see tears in his eyes. Your whole life, I failed you. I sat down across from him, not trusting myself to speak. When you were born, I was so young. 25. I didn't know what I was doing. You were colicky, you barely slept, your mother was overwhelmed, and I just tried to survive. And then you got older and you were so independent. So smart. You figured things out on your own, and I let you because it was easier. Dad? And then Lily came, and I was older, more mature. I knew what I was doing, and she was easy. She needed me in a way you never seemed to. At least that's what I told myself. He wiped his eyes roughly. But you needed me too, didn't you? You just learned early not to ask. I couldn't stop my own tears now. Yeah, I did. I'm so sorry, Madison. I'm so sorry. We sat there crying. Two broken people trying to piece together 34 years of mistakes. I can't undo what I did, he said finally. I can't go back and be the father you deserved, but I want to try to do better now. If you'll let me. What does that look like? My voice was barely a whisper. It looks like me being proud of you. Out loud. It looks like me bragging to my friends about my daughter who built an empire. It looks like me showing up. Not because you need me, but because I want to be here. And Lily? Lily needs to grow up. I've done her no favors by making everything easy. Maybe it's time I let her struggle a little. Learn what you learned. I laughed through my tears. She's going to hate that. Probably. But it's time. He looked around the living room. This house, Madison. This beautiful, incredible house. You did this. You built this life. And I should have been here celebrating every step with you. You're here now. I'm here now. He agreed. We talked for 3 more hours. About my childhood, about his regrets, about the business I'd built, about the years we'd lost. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Years of hurt don't heal in an afternoon. But it was a start. As he was leaving, he paused at the door. Can I ask you something? Sure. This whole setup today. The actors, the house manager routine. How long did that take to plan? I smiled. About a week. And it cost me $5,000. He shook his head, laughing despite himself. That's the most expensive lesson I've ever received. Was it worth it? He looked at me for a long moment. Yeah, it was. After he left, I dismissed the actors, thanked them for their excellent work, and uncovered my furniture. The house was mine again. Fully, completely mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Dad called me. He told me everything. I'm sorry, Madison. I never wanted you to feel like you had to give up anything for me. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I called her. Hey, she answered, her voice small. Hey, I really am sorry. I never knew. I never realized how much harder things were for you. You were a kid. It wasn't your fault. Maybe not, but I'm not a kid anymore. And I should have noticed. She paused. Dad says you did this whole elaborate thing where you pretended to be your own housekeeper? I laughed. Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was brilliant. He's been doing a lot of thinking since he got home. He actually told me I need to get a job. A real one. How do you feel about that? Terrified, she admitted. But maybe it's time. Maybe I've been coasting too long on being the baby. Maybe, Madison? I know I can't fix the past. But can we try to have a better future? Like an actual sister relationship? I looked out at the ocean, at the life I'd built, at the space I'd created for myself. Yeah, I said. I think we can try. We talked for another hour. It wasn't perfect. There were awkward pauses and careful words, but it was real. That night, I stood on my balcony, watching the stars reflect off the water. My phone rang again. Dad, I forgot to say something today, he said when I answered. What's that? I'm proud of you, Madison. I'm so incredibly proud of the woman you've become. And I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. Words I'd waited my entire life to hear. Thanks, Dad. I love you, sweetheart. I love you too. After we hung up, I stayed on the balcony for a long time, breathing in the salt air, feeling something shift inside my chest. That old ache, the one that had lived there since I was 7 years old, began to ease. This house was still mine. My success was still mine. But maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to hold on to it quite so tightly anymore. Maybe there was room for both. For independence and connection. For achievement and love. I went inside, my bare feet cold against the marble, and for the first time since moving in, my house felt less like a fortress and more like a home. Not because anyone had given it to me, but because I was finally ready to let people in.